Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and attending our South Bay COG legislative briefing. And thank you in advance to all of our guests in attendance. We'll officially call the meeting to order. For everyone that doesn't know me, Stacey Armato, council member in the city of Hermosa Beach, chair of the legislative committee. And I am going to toss it right over to you, Jackie, for a program update.
Okay, thank you. Well, we thank you for doing that. And Natalie's going to do the slides for us. Thank you. Every time for the legislative briefing, I try to give us a little update on what the COG is doing, so you have an idea of our programs. So we unfortunately haven't had a meeting since January, so this will be an update of what we've been doing since then. If you could go to the next slide. We're going to cover a lot. We have a lot of different programs that we really are excited to share with you this morning. So if you go to the next slide, the first program is the South Bay Fiber Network. And what we want to do is tell you about where we are with the fiber network. As you know, it's up and running. And if you can see the outline, it connects all of our city halls and several other agencies throughout the South Bay with high-speed, low-cost broadband internet service. So we can go to the next slide. After we've connected all of our city halls, we now have 40 sites. You can tell it's not just city halls. We have some parks. We have other agencies. We have the total cost that the money we got from Metro to build this was $6.9 million. We have a little money left. We're working with Torrance Transit on providing connections to their transit center and also any last minute hookups that we might do. But we want to expand. We want to, I didn't put it on the slide, but we want to work on the digital divide in our communities. And we have found that we have underserved businesses. So we have a pilot that we're going to about to begin in Torrance and in Carson to put wireless infrastructure on some of their tall buildings and begin to serve their underserved businesses with more reliable and less expensive and higher speed service. Also, the state and the federal government have a lot of money that they're providing for broadband, and the Public Utilities Commission is going to be having a grant that for agencies like ours and cities, and we will be applying to those for that grant. We're hoping to apply by August 19th, so we might be asking for letters of support. Please watch. We hope you'll support us. And then I just want to take the second to say this is our 2-year anniversary. We started the SBFN became operational in August of 2020, right during the middle of COVID. And so we're pretty excited, and we have been told that you know, we can overbuild and put fiber everywhere in the South Bay, or we can get service immediately. And we chose to get service pretty fast. And so we think we're a model for how to really get people and agencies what they need as fast as possible. Next slide. We're also extremely proud of our local travel network, which is a concept that we came up with because 70% of our trips are 3 miles or less. So if we can get people to use all of our roads, the local roads and the arterials, we can spread the traffic, reduce congestion, and also create a more fun and safe way to get around the South Bay. So what you see on the right is the streets that we've designated. We've ridden those streets ourselves with low-speed, zero-emission vehicles. That would be bicycles, segways, neighborhood electric vehicles, scooters. These are not rentals. They're owned. We're not encouraging rentals. We're encouraging ownership. People should get rid of their second, third, and fourth car and consider using our local travel network when it's up and running. Where we are right now is we have a consultant doing wayfinding signs, and we're going to be branding the whole network so it'll have a unique look when you're driving around the South Bay. You'll be able to follow the network and go from city to city on safe streets. We're looking at an inland corridor and a beach corridor to begin, but it turns out we're getting a lot of enthusiasm, and other cities are also interested in joining us as soon as possible. So you'll hear a lot more about that. Next slide. And I'd be more than happy to answer questions at the end. Transportation projects. We are looking obviously at how do we help our operators or understand the impacts of their service due to COVID and just the reduced use of transit. Another thing that came to our attention, and I really want to put it on your radar, is that the Metro has decided not to do any improvements to the 710, which we believe is going to create increased truck traffic on the 110. And we'd like that looked into, and we'd like to make sure that the quality of our road system isn't deteriorated because of what the decision on the 710. So we're going to be doing a lot more on that, and we're just getting that started. We're also looking at other Metro programs, and our Green Line extension to Torrance is right now in the EIR phase, so we're watching that. But there's a lot of, you can see there's other programs, and Natalie can make this available to you, this presentation, so you'll have this as background and can ask me questions, at any time. Next slide. We're proud of the fact that we get Measure R and M money for our cities, and we've, since 2008 for R and 2016 for M, we've had these successes, giving 791 million to Measure R and 251.3 million on Measure M. And then we're kicking off our next cycle come this fall to have cities apply for additional projects. Next slide. We have a very robust homeless services program in which we work with our cities on trying to not only prevent, but also relieve homelessness. We are looking at Project Home Key sites, and you can see that we have one that we're working on in Redondo, but we have additional sites we've identified. We're very excited about the new Torrance Temporary Village, which already has, I think, almost 30 people living in there right now. And it just opened up, I think, a week ago. And we're working on another potential site. We're trying to find out if we can enhance the 988 mental health call number with 24/7 alternate crisis response, a pilot. And then we have other irons in the fire, looking at funds that would need to be cleaned up if we were going to use them for homelessness. Next slide. Next, okay. I want to remind you, we have a very interesting program called Home Share South Bay. And actually it was on the NewsHour the other night, not our program, but the company we use, which is Silver Nest, and they match people. They have contracts and agreements all worked out. They have tips on how people can share homes, and the rent would be low, or you can share a home and say you'll do gardening or you'll do shopping, or just have companionship for people that are alone and might want to keep somebody from being homeless by sharing their home. We would like to give welcome kits out to newly housed people, and we're looking for sponsors to do that. That would be like having toilet paper and other cleaning products in their homes when they are able to be housed. If you know of somebody who'd like to sponsor that, we'd love to have sponsors so we can have welcome kits when we house people. And speaking of when we house people, we have client aid now that we are giving out as a COG as a last resort. If someone needs a security deposit to get into their home, or they need a motel stay to get ready for a work appointment, we have now rather fast ability to do client aid, as long as other opportunities for money have been explored. So far, this just started. We've helped 17 clients, and at 13 are permanently housed. So we're pretty excited about that. And it's about $1,000 a client. I also want to bring your attention to the fact that we're going to start a good news campaign. We are going to put on social media success stories. Everybody knows the bad stories about homelessness, but what about all the good stories, the people that are getting housed? And so if you follow us on Twitter or on any of the other social media and you see a good news story, please retweet it, or please help us spread the word so that people understand that there's good going on in the homeless area. Next slide's very interesting as well. Next slide. We have Ronson Chu, who's our homeless project manager, loves statistics. And I thought this one was really interesting. Every single city has been affected by evictions, people that are being evicted. And here is city by city in the South Bay. And the column that's circled these are the applicants that were facing eviction when they applied for state rent relief. And as you can see, every city but Rolling Hills is on that list. So there is no one spared, no city spared in having this concern. Next slide. Our environmental programs continue, and we give short shrift to them because there is so much going on. We're working with our cities to update their greenhouse gas inventories and to monitor their climate action plans for how they're doing and reduce their greenhouse gas inventories. But then during COVID and all these obstacles that have been put in our way, we still were able to do 104 events this year, and 500 water conservation kits were passed out, 110 water assessments, and we're planning our new programs right now. Okay, next slide. Energy efficiency and waste programs, we continue to work on that. And we have 2 newsletters. Please sign up for our newsletters. And we also have our quarterly Baywatch, which talks about the entire COG program. Next slide. We sponsored legislation this year, and our first one didn't pass. It was to create a micro-mobility rebate. So for these devices that would go on our local travel network, we wanted to have a rebate. We're going to try again next year. Assemblyman Marisucci sponsored for us a neighborhood electric vehicle plan, which allows us to use that designation on the local travel network, and that seems to be moving through the legislature. We also are creating a South Bay Housing Trust, and that seems to be moving through the legislature. The request for funding that we've made, we're looking for seed money for the trust, and we're looking to establish something called the Center for Sustainable and Resilient Neighborhoods, which would help meet state goals. And some of the things that they would do is they'd work on energy storage for renewables. They'd work on a ride and drive tool to help people understand why they could use an electric car. And also we would look for creating mobility and digital hubs in neighborhoods so that people could have access to their neighborhood hub where they could get high-speed digital service if they didn't have it at their home. We're still hoping to get some money there, and we'll work with our legislators because we think we can hit the ground running, and we have a track record that shows that. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation, and if you could take that down, I would be pleased to answer any questions. I don't know, I just got a text. I don't know if Congresswoman Waters is here. Is she here right now?
Hi, Jackie.
There you are.
Yes, there is our Congresswoman. You're on mute.
And I have a problem. They've just called the vote. We have 19 votes that we've got to vote on. It's only 6 minutes left on the vote call. You know, we normally have about 15 minutes, but here's what I'm going to do. I have a prepared presentation. I'm going to ask my chief of staff to come on and read this presentation because I can't miss any votes. And so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to get there. I have 6 minutes left to get there before they close that. I lose the first vote. So her name is Charlotte Avatani, and she is getting ready to come on. So if you continue with your program as you're going, then following that, she will be ready and she will come on. She will read my presentation to you, and hopefully I'll be able to see you sometime in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We appreciate you attending always. You are tried and true and always attending our legislative briefings. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. I prepare for it because I wanted to share 10 minutes of good information. Unfortunately, the way this floor schedule is worked and us trying to get all the bills done before we close down of all of August, it has just crowded the floor. And so I've got 5 minutes remaining on this vote. I'm going to depart, and then you keep going, and my staff will let you know when Charlotte is ready, and then you can tell her when to come on. Thank you.
Thank you, Congress member. Next time we'll have them schedule around our meeting, your votes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. But since Charlotte will need some time, first of all, Jackie, thank you for presenting all the valuable programs that the COG provides for all of our member cities. I think everyone can see the great work that staff and our board members put into the benefits that all of our cities receive in an array of areas. I also want to acknowledge our COG chair, John Cruikshank. Thank you for being in attendance. And
hi, everyone.
Trustee leader. Since the Congress member has to go to a vote, Jeanette, would you like to present first on behalf of Senator Feinstein?
Yeah, thanks, Stacy, and thank you, Jackie, for your wonderful presentation. Happy to go. I can be quick in case Congresswoman Waters' chief comes on, but just a quick update. Senate is back in session, and locally we did approve and come up with our congressionally directed spending list. And I want to thank all the cities that applied and the cities that didn't apply. I want to encourage you next year to get in contact with me so we can work out what the projects look like. I know we had a few different cities make this initial list, and I won't go through them all today, because I do think, as you know, the congressionally directed spending process will carry out through the summer and into fall. So when we have that final list, we'll go ahead and share it with you and what makes it through subcommittee. But we had so many great projects, and unfortunately, there were a few that weren't able to make the list, but we're really excited for what made the list, and really appreciate all the time and effort that cities and nonprofits put towards them. And as the Senate and the House gets a little bit better at getting used to these projects, we're really looking forward to funding a few great South Bay projects. So thank you for that. Moving forward, what to expect in this next July. As you know, Congress passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, but I still think there's going to be more discussion on gun reform. And with, I know you guys mentioned the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. I think that's going to be a big, that's kind of taking up a lot of the Judiciary Committee's time. We had a hearing earlier this week, and the senator is pushing for anything we can do to codify this and support states in the decision and the subsequent fallout of what's going to be happening in the next few months. Moving forward, I do think we'll be looking at the U.S. competitiveness bill. So we'll be seeing some hearings on that. And I don't know if a ton of people on this care, but we will have the annual defense authorization bill in the next few months. And we expect a few of our different bills to be in that Space Force bill. So keep an eye out for that. We also hope to renegotiate a budget reconciliation bill for Build Back Better. So keep your eyes and ears for that. 7 of our bills were included in the House version. So we expect, I know Leader Schumer is kind of whittling a little bit of that down. We're not quite sure exactly how that's going to play out, but we'll keep you posted. And last but not least, I just wanted to share that I've talked about this before, but the DDT off the coast, the ocean dumping that was kind of publicized with the LA Times article, EPA has put out a public facing website. So I'll drop that in the chat for everyone to see. I know some cities here were really concerned about that. And we've been asking EPA to put out something publicly facing so you can share with your constituents. So I'll go ahead and share that in the chat. It has a lot of great information, and we're still working with EPA and NOAA and UC Santa Barbara and Scripps to do another study and to see how we can honestly figure out what's going on. And state actually just included some 5.6 million in their budget as well, which matched the federal version that we put out. So we're hopeful on that, and we'll keep you updated. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette, for that update, and thank you for being here. We'll move on to Congressmember Ted Lieu's office. Nicholas, are you going to provide that update for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna pitch hitting here as our team is a little tied up. Hi, Nico Rodriguez. I'm Congressman Lieu's district director, here to give a quick report. Actually, Jeanette touched on a couple pieces I was planning on touching on as well. Similar lines. We have wrapped up some of the initial work on community project funding requests for fiscal year 23 that we submitted to the Appropriations Committee. Similarly, we got a ton of really great proposals from a variety of cities, many of which in the South Bay. Unfortunately, there was a limit in terms of how many we could submit to the Appropriations Committee for consideration. We are pleased that a few projects from the South Bay did make it into the initial piece of legislation that the committee is going to consider. That includes funding for the Mobile Crisis Response Pilot Program for the city of Hermosa Beach, some expanded funding for inclusive friendship school clubs for the Friendship Foundation in Redondo Beach, some additional funding for the Torrance Temporary Housing Program, some additional funding for the Manhattan Beach Safe Cycling Project, and some funding for providing the Pathways to Success College and Career Support Program for the Boys and Girls Club of LA Harbor. Those are just a few of the South Bay focused projects. There is additional funding, a lot of it tied to addressing homelessness that we've gotten, not just in the South Bay, but throughout our district, and some funding for some important federally qualified healthcare centers work in the South Bay these days, furnish their facilities. So overall, pleased with that. There is still quite a bit to do, well, as it relates to the status of that funding. Additionally, we've had some other legislative items. Last night we were taking up, as Jeanette mentioned, the House actually has already been taking up the War Department of Defense and the Pentagon NDAA. We're hoping to wrap up with that fairly soon. We also have had some work introducing legislation addressing small business needs that we have taken care of. And then I guess lastly, from a local perspective, just a quick update on the West LA VA. We're still on target to open 3 additional housing buildings on the West LA VA campus by the end of this year. Buildings 207, 205, and 208 should be open or completed by the end of this year, and hopefully housing homeless or housing needing veterans by the end of this year and early next year. We've recently gotten some additional updates from the Department of Veterans Affairs as relates to that. And lastly, we have a lot of South Bay students who have applied for our Youth Advisory Council, and we are currently reviewing applications for that right now to update our next year's Youth Advisory Council. That's one of our larger projects right now, and we should have decisions on that fairly soon. One thing I will remind folks, because I put on my old caseworker hat, is we are seeing a very large influx of people requesting passports in an emergency basis prior to going on a trip. Right now, the State Department is facing one of its largest backlogs on processing passports in the entire country. The special handling appointments that congressional and Senate offices are usually able to obtain at a local passport office are becoming increasingly difficult to get for people who have bought a ticket, looked at their passport, and realized, oh, my passport's expired. One thing to remind, and I highly urge people to spread the word about this. Please make sure to share with people to check their passports before they're purchasing a flight. We're getting to the point where the LA Passport Office and other passport offices are only accepting life or death situations in order to grant someone a special appointment at the passport office. I keep that in mind right now. We're in the swing of international vacation, and also we do have the unfortunate normal circumstance of people having emergencies. It's really critical for people to apply early. Check your passport. If it's a year from expiring, I recommend that you go ahead and apply for a renewal now. Right now, the processing time by the passport office and the State Department is 8 to 11 weeks for a normal passport renewal, and it's usually about 5 to 7 for an expedite. Make sure to spread the word on that. I can't urge you enough, because we are fielding calls, and we're unfortunately, in some cases, disappointing folks who were not able to get passport appointments for. I'll stop there since I've gone on long. Thanks.
That was great. Thank you, Nico, for that update. We're gonna go back over to Charla from Congresswoman Waters' office. I believe that she is on and able to give a presentation. If that is not the case, we can move on. We can move on. Charla, here we are.
Please pass it.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Sorry about that.
There we go. Okay, welcome.
Hi, well, thank you so much for letting me sub in for the chairwoman. As she explained, they've called an extremely long series of votes on the House floor. So, unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to stay and give the whole presentation, but I am more than happy to fill in for her. Just to tell you a bit about myself, my name is Charla Wartatani, and I am the staff director for the Financial Services Committee. I've been working for Chairwoman Waters for about 15 years now. Previously used to be her deputy chief of staff and legislative director up in the personal office. I'm very familiar with South Bay Council of Governments, and actually had the pleasure of attending one of your meetings in person back in 2018 when we did a staff trip out to the district. So the chairwoman really wanted to talk about all the work that she's been doing in Congress, some of her major accomplishments and everything that's kind of changed since the last time that she was able to meet with you all in October, and also to talk about big things that are coming up. So first of all, since the last time she was with you in October, there have been a lot of changes at the federal level. As you all know, in January, President Biden signed into law the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which is going to provide $550 billion in new spending over the next 5 years to rebuild and revitalize our nation's crumbling infrastructure. And I know that she's especially pleased that over the next 5 years, the state of California is going to receive over $40 billion for highways and bridges, public transportation, airport infrastructure, electric vehicle charging stations, and highway safety programs. This is in addition to $609 million in clean water and safe drinking water funds just this year alone. Moreover, local governments like the South Bay cities can compete for billions of dollars in funding for local infrastructure priorities like the bus and bus facilities program and highway and transportation safety improvements. And as these funds roll out in our communities, or as you all compete for these dollars, I know she's very interested in hearing from you all on how this process is working and how she can be of assistance to you in Congress. Another thing that's changed, unfortunately, since her last visit with you all in October is the increase in inflation. Since October, inflation has risen to highs not seen for over 40 years. They just announced yesterday that it's up 9.1%, which is the highest in 41 years. Something the chairwoman did want to convey to you all is that inflation is a global problem, and it's caused by Russia's unprovoked war in Ukraine and ongoing COVID-19 lockdowns and supply chain breakdowns. She wants to assure you that addressing inflation and bringing prices down is one of her top priorities in Congress. She recently called Jay Powell, who is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, to testify before the House Financial Services Committee, which she chairs, on how the Fed is tackling inflation. Unfortunately, the Fed's only solution to address inflation is to raise interest rates. And this is why she's fighting in Congress to lessen the effects of inflation on families here in the South Bay. She's worked to pass legislation to stop gas price gouging, to support the production of baby formula, and to increase affordable housing production. However, the main action that Congress can take to address inflation is to pass the Build Back Better Act. As I mentioned earlier, a driving cause of inflation is the cost of housing, which has risen to unsustainable levels since the pandemic. For example, in Los Angeles County, the price of a single-family home rose nearly 11% to just over $800,000 since last year. The Build Back Better Act would provide an historic $150 billion investment in our nation's housing programs. It would finally solve our country's affordable housing crisis. And Chairwoman Waters actually wrote this $150 billion housing title of the Build Back Better Act, and she has fought tooth and nail for its passage. Now, although the entire $2.2 trillion bill passed the House last November, it's now stalled in the Senate. In the midst of an ongoing national housing crisis, not to mention a local one here in California, this bill couldn't be any more urgent. And just to give you some highlights, specifically, it would provide $10 billion to assist first-generation homebuyers to purchase a home, $24 billion for new housing choice vouchers, more than $30 billion to create and preserve affordable housing, including housing for seniors, people with disabilities, and people experiencing homelessness, $2 billion for energy efficient and climate resilient upgrades to federally assisted housing, $3 billion in community development block grant funding for affordable housing and community infrastructure upgrades, and $5 billion to address lead-based paint and other hazards in the homes of low-income families. Now, these investments will not only increase the supply of housing in the United States, but it will also ensure that everyone has a fair and equitable access to safe, quality, and affordable housing in the communities of their choice. And until Congress passes these robust investments, Chairwoman Waters is going to continue to fight to ensure that people have safe, fair, and affordable housing. Moving on to COVID-19 pandemic, which unfortunately we're still dealing with. While we've made great strides under the leadership of President Biden to combat the spread of COVID-19, the disease is still with us. As summer transitions into fall, we know that new subvariants are going to emerge, and those subvariants will once again pose a risk to our health, economy, and lives. So we have to remain vigilant against COVID-19, and this is why Democrats in Congress are continuing their work to secure billions of dollars in additional pandemic aid to increase testing, vaccines, and treatment. And we have a long track record of tackling the pandemic and providing the resources that our communities, just like those here in the South Bay, need. In March of 2020, Congress passed the CARES Act, significant legislation that Chairwoman Waters and her Democratic colleagues led and fought for to support individuals, families, workers, and small businesses across this country. And here's just a little bit of what this bill did. So first, it protected consumers, homeowners, renters, and people experiencing homelessness. Through the CARES Act, Chairwoman Waters was able to personally secure $4 billion for homeless assistance. Today, these funds are still at work in our communities and are helping homeless service providers assist people experiencing homelessness. For example, this funding is being used in Los Angeles County to help people experiencing homelessness move into housing by providing them with services and financial supports, such as money to cover apartment security deposits and moving costs, as well as housing search assistance. The CARES Act and subsequent bills supported individuals, families, and workers. For example, there were 2 rounds of stimulus checks in 2020, which helped families keep food on their table and a roof over their heads. The CARES Act and subsequent bills supported small businesses. We all know that small businesses are the backbone of our community's economy. Congress authorized a variety of small business support programs, most notably the Paycheck Protection Program, to ensure small businesses like the ones right here in the South Bay got the resources they needed to stay open and continue serving local communities. After making improvements to the implementation along the way, in 2020, the PPP provided more than $1 billion in support to more than 10,000 small businesses in the 43rd Congressional District of California, which Chairwoman Waters represents. In 2020 and 2021 combined, nearly 700,000 small businesses in California received support totaling more than $100 billion in PPP loans. In addition, we provided over $16 billion to support state and local governments in California to help address medical and public health needs, as well as to mitigate other adverse impacts like educational support, school breakfast, and lunch programs. Chairwoman Waters also worked day and night to secure $25 billion in emergency rental assistance through the COVID bill that passed in December of 2020. Another key piece of legislation that's helped struggling families across the South Bay is the historic American Rescue Plan. Chairwoman Waters was instrumental in the passage of this bill, and she was very pleased to lead the effort on major provisions of this bill. This legislation included key funding that she secured that has helped millions of families to remain stably housed and support small landlords during the pandemic, including an additional $21.6 billion for emergency rental assistance, $10 billion in homeowner assistance, $5 billion for 70,000 new housing choice vouchers, and $5 billion to help states and local governments provide services and housing for people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Of this funding, California received more than $5 billion in emergency rental assistance, which has helped over 340,000 families to remain stably housed in our state, and $1 billion to launch the state's Homeowner Assistance Fund, which is the largest in the country. The Los Angeles area also received the largest share of these new housing vouchers, which are targeted to helping people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The American Rescue Plan also included other important provisions like a 3rd round of direct payments to individuals, as well as an expansion of the child tax credit and so much more to protect small businesses and get people vaccinated quickly. The bill also included additional support for small businesses in several ways, which included the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which provided nearly 16,000 restaurants in California with grants totaling over $5.7 billion, a renewal of the state small business credit initiative to provide up to $100 billion in new small business loans and investments, along with technical assistance, so our small businesses can get the legal, accounting, and financial advice they need to get these funds to grow their businesses. California is expecting to get the largest amount of these funds, and this additional support should soon be flowing to our small businesses very soon. Lastly, the chairwoman wanted to talk to you about cryptocurrency. Just like many of you, like she's hearing from her constituents, and they're increasingly interested in digital assets, such as cryptocurrencies. And she knows that a lot of you may have noticed that this market recently crashed, and that many investors, particularly middle-class investors, have now lost billions of dollars. And these losses can have a profound impact on local governments. And that's why under her leadership as chairwoman of the Financial Services Committee, she's held a series of bipartisan hearings in the committee on the topic, including a hearing with the CEOs of the largest crypto companies. And she's undertaken a really deep dive on stable coins and central bank digital currencies in particular. So I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more that I'm sure that she would have liked to have said. But I'm gonna leave it there and stop. But I want to thank you again for having me and for extending the invitation for the chairwoman. And I know that she looks forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Really appreciate you pinch hitting for the Congresswoman. Thank you so much for coming in on such last minute notice. We have a few more seconds or minutes here until we have to move on. We do have a little bit of time for Q&A. I'll leave that for anyone in attendance here as the priority. If you want to raise your hand, if you have a question as it relates to our federal issues. Not seeing any takers. Unlike everyone to be so shy, but we did receive questions ahead. So I will ask, oh, let's see. We have a note here. You know, we may need to skip questions. I apologize, and we will move straight into our state updates. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here and giving those updates, what's happening in Washington and the work you're doing to help us in the South Bay. Thank you all. Okay, moving on, it looks like a representative from Mike Gibson's office. Let's see, is that Mark? Mark, are you in attendance right now?
I think he had to step out.
Yeah. Understood. Okay, well, we have Assemblywoman Tina McEnor. I hope I pronounced that properly. Pleasure to meet you. This is my first opportunity to see you, and thank you so much for being here, and I'll turn it right over to you for your updates. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. It's Tina McKenna. You were close. How are you guys? This is my first meeting with you guys, so I just want to say hi and glad to be here. I thank you, Stacy and Jackie, for your leadership. Always. Hi, Jackie. Jackie knows me though. She remembers me back when I was then Assembly Member Steve Bradford's district director. I want to give you guys a little bit of update on the state budget. A central component of the budget is an over $17 billion broad-based relief package. This relief package also includes increased grants for the state's lowest income families and individuals, additional funding for food banks, funding for rental assistance, payments for outstanding utility charges built up during the pandemic, covers all family fees for subsidized child care and preschool programs, health care subsidies for the middle class if federal subsidies expire, includes retention bonus payments for thousands of healthcare workers, targets relief to small businesses by including a 1-year suspension of the state sales tax on diesel, and provides an additional grants to small businesses negatively impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Let's look at what it's doing for K through 12. Last year, the budget included $4.4 billion over multiple years to transform California's behavioral health system for all California children and youth. This year, the budget includes an additional $290 million over 3 years to address the most urgent needs and emergent issues in children's mental health. This proposal will support grants to deliver well-being and mindfulness programs as well as parent support education programs. The budget includes total funding of $128.6 billion for all K through 12 education programs and provides ongoing funding for core programs such as the local control funding formula, special education, transitional kindergarten, nutrition, school facilities, preschool, and expanded learning. We're very proud of the money that we're providing for education this year. So then there's low income zero emissions. Vehicles, $76 million one-time greenhouse gas reduction fund to support low income consumer purchases through Clean Cars for All and other equity programs. Alongside the investment in ZEVs and infrastructure, the budget includes $13.8 billion one-time general fund and bond funds over 2 years for transportation programs and projects that align with climate goals, advance public health and equity, and improve access to opportunity. The budget includes a $1.3 billion greenhouse gas reduction fund to support various programs that advance the state's greenhouse gas reduction and climate goals, while advancing equity and environmental justice. Our Medi-Cal community-based mobile crisis intervention services, $1.4 billion over 5 years to add qualifying community-based mobile crisis intervention services no sooner than January 1, 2023, as Medi-Cal covered benefit through the Medi-Cal behavioral health delivery system. LA County budget wins. $20 million one-time for the Los Angeles County Abortion Access Safe Haven Pilot Program. $100 million general fund one-time to Los Angeles County to provide community-based mental health services to justice-involved individuals. Approves $200 million general fund in 2022-2023 and $100 million general fund in 2023-2024 for a combined one-time investment of $300 million over 2 years, with budget bill language for Los Angeles County child welfare stabilization. I want to address the South Bay Regional House Trust. Senator Ben Allen has introduced SB 1444 to authorize the SBCCOG to enter a joint powers agreement known as the South Bay Regional Housing Trust to fund housing to assist the homeless population and persons and families of extreme low income with the South Bay City regions. Budget includes over $2 billion general fund over the next 2 years for affordable housing production in the following programs. The budget also includes $850 million to help very, very low and moderate income individuals purchase or remain in their homes. Housing, a little bit about housing. Housing and the drought. The vast majority of our water use is attributed to the ag industry in California, growing and exporting high revenue crops such as grapes, nuts, and other fruit. Addressing the housing crisis in California cannot come second to big ag profits, and data shows that despite population growth, total urban water use has fallen over the past 30 years. We cannot place this burden on the people of California to solve the water crisis single-handedly, and continue to gatekeep the right to access basic necessities based on income and class cannot be the answer. Therefore, we must continue to invest in housing while addressing the real water usage culprit, irresponsible and unsustainable ag. Furthermore, access to clean water and housing should be treated as a basic human right and necessity. Across the broad multifamily housing, water usage is less than that of single-family homes, and the majority of new developments that aim to address the housing crisis are multifamily complexes. Placing a moratorium on housing starts is a micro-level solution to addressing the state's water crisis that will produce massive consequences for residents in desperate need of housing solutions. There are various environmental evaluations conducted through the California CEQA that must be completed and approved before development can break ground. The CEQA review process is extremely involved, and in addition to legislative and municipal oversight and review, various divisions, such as the Division of Water Rights Permitting, must also complete their own evaluations of the projects. The Division of Water Rights and Permitting is overseen by 5 executively appointed members. So yes, the legislature does closely consider and monitor water resources throughout the development of new business. Housing. Over the next 2 years, the state budget will provide $2 billion to multiple efforts that aim at addressing housing shortages in California. This includes converting existing commercial or office spaces into affordable housing, accelerating the process of issuing funds from the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee to affordable housing projects, leveraging state excess land as an asset to expedite housing opportunities, and preserving and developing affordable mobile home parks. The state has a multitude of creating solutions that will utilize state land, infrastructure, and resources to offer low-cost, low-term ground leases in exchange for affordable and mixed income use. It takes a few years to see the efforts and collect data on impacts of legislation, but I can imagine the legislature and various other entities, such as the Legislative Analyst's Office, are actively investigating the implementation and outcome of legislation that has passed in the recent sessions. This year, I'm also the author of AB 1743, which will ask local governments to annually report how many housing units were actually produced and occupied. This bill asks local governments a very simple but important question after all the work of this legislature, the governor, and our local governments over the past several years to address the housing crisis. How much housing was actually produced? As we continue our work to make sure every Californian has a safe and affordable place to call home, the information provided by AB 1743 will give the public and policymakers an important metrics necessary to guide our work in the future. In regards to legislation that removes local control over land use and zoning, the intended outcome of this legislation is to expand multi-unit housing to areas that are zoned or more appropriately redlined for single-family homes. Removing local control means the state no longer has to navigate around racist and inclusionary zoning laws and can more effectively address housing shortage throughout the state. The anticipated outcomes that many single-family zone communities will be impacted and forced to adapt to the changes that California is moving towards, which I view as a positive advancement. That is my state report. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Assembly Member McKinner. Really appreciate you being here and providing that update and the work you're doing. Thank you for acknowledging and hopefully supporting the South Bay Regional Housing Trust as well. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Jasmine Guerrero here representing Senator Bradford's office. Jasmine?
Hi, good morning, South Bay COG. Thank you so much for having me here to present the legislative briefing on behalf of Senator Bradford. Like Stacey said, my name is Jasmine Leon Guerrero, and I'm his district representative. I hope everyone's staying healthy and safe so far. So in the district this year, Senator Bradford's top priority will continue to be on recovering from the pandemic and keeping his constituents safe by encouraging everyone to get vaccinated and boosted. He's very motivated to build the economy back by focusing on local business owners, specifically providing resources to increase equity in the cannabis industry. And I just want to say it's great to see Assembly Member McKinner. She and the senator are good friends, and our office is really excited to combine forces and work together with our constituents. So this is really exciting for us. So thank you again, Assembly Member McKinner. His office, or our office, also continues to support constituents that have unemployment and disability issues with EDD, as well as rental and mortgage assistance, among many other issues. And next week, actually, within the district, the California Legislative Black Caucus, they'll be holding their 2022 African American Leaders for Tomorrow program. So that's been a couple months in the making. So we're really excited about that. And the district office is also assisting with that as well. And I also wanted to mention in August 13th, we are preparing for Senator Bradford's Back to School Resource Fair. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at home. Back to school resource fair and backpack giveaway. Again, this is on August 13th from 11 a.m. to 3 at Cal State Dominguez Hills. The event is open to the entire 35th Senate District, and it will help under-resourced youth to prepare for the upcoming school year. We'll be giving away 500 backpacks filled with school supplies to the students, and we'll have several resource booths, I think above 20 resource booths there. And those will include services like WIC enrollment, vaccinations, health screenings, eye exams, dental screenings, immunizations, haircuts, to name a few. But I wish I had the official flyer with me. I'll send it to Natalie as well as the link to our Eventbrite once it's ready. Anyway, up in Sacramento, some of the senators' bills that would be of interest to the COG are SB 1281. This reduces the cannabis excise tax and eliminates the cannabis cultivation tax to help business owners grow and thrive in the legal market, and also helps to eliminate the illegal market. And as well as SB 1293. This provides tax credit for cannabis equity operators that they would normally receive for regular business expenses if cannabis were not illegal in the federal level. SB 777, this incentivizes private capital investment in small minority-owned and women-owned businesses by providing tax credit on these investments. SB 1178 eliminates any upcoming deadline for individuals to have eligible felonies on their criminal records designated as misdemeanors. This is pursuant to Prop 47, and this would make it great for people that are trying to reintegrate into society, right, just to get an apartment or even get a good job. So we're excited about that bill. SB 1334, this guarantees meal breaks and rest periods for public sector hospital employees and UC workers. And these are among many other bills that the senator has, but I think those particular would be of interest to you all. Also, the senator is continuing his important work in the reparations task force. And I'm sure you guys are all aware, the task force is charged with investigating the history of injustice and brutality against African Americans. And actually June 1st, just last month, the task force issued their interim report to the legislature. This report surveys the ongoing and compounding harms experienced by African Americans as a result of slavery, and of course its lingering effect on American society today. And the report also includes a set of preliminary recommendations for policies that the legislature could adopt to remedy those harms. And the final report will be issued July 1st of next year. And I'm just going to link the, to everyone. I'm going to link the interim report on the chat. It's a 600-page read, but there is a summary. And I just encourage you guys to take a look at it. And the next meeting has yet to be scheduled. However, the task force encourages everybody to attend and to ask questions, and make their comments of it. So they are also holding in-person meetings. So if you are in the area for the next meeting, they would love to have you. And I'm going to go ahead and speak on the questions submitted by the COG. So as far as the budget, so Senator Bradford secured millions of dollars in direct and equitable investments for the 35th Senate District. And some of these programs are $7 million to the Inner City Youth Orchestra. And this program provides youth in LA with opportunities to perform music in most significant of settings. And I actually joined the senator at the Walt Disney Concert Hall this past weekend. And it was amazing to see Black and brown kids up there in this 60 to 80 person orchestra. And one of the numbers that they played was actually composed by two of the orchestra members. So it was very moving and it was amazing. So we're excited about that. $5.2 million to the Angels for Sight for renovating their vision care center. And they're actually going to be included in our resource fair, but they provide free vision screenings, eye examinations, and glasses for the uninsured and underserved children and seniors who would not be able to receive these services. $5.2 million for the Entrepreneur Education Center, EECI, to support their Business Opportunity Center. And $28 million for Colonel Allensworth visitor center construction. So this is actually pursuant to his bill SB 1277, the Allensworth Revitalization Bill. And if you guys aren't aware, it's between Fresno and Bakersfield, and there lies Allensworth. And it's actually the first Black town, and this town was named after Colonel Allensworth, who was solely financed, governed, and built and designed and founded all by African Americans. So this town is very amazing, and it technically is a state park today. But when you go there, it's not something that you'd want to really revisit again and again in its current state. So they're trying to revitalize it and make it someplace that the families can go to every summer and have hookups to their RVs. And so they're trying to make it something that everybody could be proud of. And as far as other budget priorities, so as chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, some of the budget priorities that are being funded are the $4 million for support for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and the rehabilitative programs. So this is things such as cognitive behavioral therapy and reentry services, and just great methods, to help addressing youth behavior as well, rather than, going unfortunately in circles and going back into the prison system. $10 million to CAM, the California African American Museum, for critical projects, and $12 million to the Promise Neighborhoods. And this is, if you guys aren't aware, it's improving the cradle to career results for children in the community. And $266 million for the workforce development grants to restore critical funding to the early learning and care workforce development grant program. And your next question regarding the South Bay Regional Housing Trust. So I did speak to our legislative staff about this, and to be honest, unfortunately, the timeline for submitting budget-related asks and trailer bills had passed in April. Although after speaking with them in length, our team was saying that it's not impossible since the budget is still being crafted, right? But it's extremely unlikely. But I'd be, of course, more than happy to connect you with our legislative staff to work with you all on a budget request for the upcoming fiscal year. Again, we can try because, like I said, it's not impossible, but and there will continue to be trailer bills for the budget, but the prospect of including more in the current budget is a little unlikely, but we can try. And but however, if you want to submit a letter of support, we are happy to sign off on it or have the letter take a look at it and have the senator's support. And the last two questions about housing and drought. So what the council member said about restrictions on water usage and its demand and increased housing. And those are very good points. And I agree. I would be happy to bring this up to our legislative team and connect you with them for further discussion. I mean, comments like this, it's really important to get the input of our constituents in the district. So I really appreciate that question. I'd like to mention that Senator Bradford has a decoupling bill, SB 1469, and this authorizes water utilities to utilize a rate-making process. So that is referred to decoupling. This will eliminate incentivizing water utilities to increase water use, and instead it will promote conservation. So we're excited about this bill. A lot of water utilities companies are also excited about this bill as well. And I also wanted to mention California with this budget is doubling down on the response to the climate crisis. They're securing additional power generating capacity for the summer. And so that's all in the budget as well. I believe $19 billion the climate energy package. And the last question regarding housing, housing that is affordable. So within the state budget, there's a $2 billion multi-year affordable housing package, including investments in multifamily housing programs, housing accelerator programs, ADU financing, and veterans housing and homelessness prevention programs. And I'd like to just say that most of the details of the budget are still being finalized later in the session, but I can assure you that the senator is always fighting for justice and equity and inclusion. The last question about revisiting prior legislation to study. So the California Department of Housing and Community Development, they're always assessing the impacts of previous mandates, and they do the research to ensure that all local governments are adequately are planning to meet the housing needs of everyone in the community and continuously produce reports as well. So we work with each other to identify issue areas as well as areas that need work or that do work, so that we can continue to progress with that. And yes, we can always make and amend a bill if we find that it's not working. The senator is a huge supporter of common sense laws from both sides of the aisle. So if you guys have a particular law you are concerned about or think it isn't working, I would love for you to contact me directly, and I can help to speak with our liaison at the Department of Housing to give you some clarity. So I'll give you my contact information there on the chat. And that's all for me. Thank you so much again. And I hope everyone's well and stay safe.
Thank you, Jasmine, for that update, and a special thank you for addressing the questions that were submitted. We appreciate your responses on that front as well. Thank you. Next up, from Senator Kamlager's office, we have Joy Richardson. Joy, floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Joy Richardson, and I am the District Director for State Senator Sidney Kamlager. And Sidney Kamlager is the Senator for District 30. So I'm going to kind of give you an update of our budget wins and some of the bills that Senator Kamlager has been working on. Jasmine kind of covered a little bit of the things, a few of the budget wins that I was going to cover, and Assemblywoman McKenna spoke about a few of them, but so bear with me. It's exciting how much money we brought down to Southern California, so I might repeat some things, but I wanted to highlight again the $10 million that we got for the California African American Museum. Senator Kamlager got $5 million for the California Science Foundation and the Air and Space Center as well. So 2 things here on the property. She got $3 million for the County of Los Angeles Project Angel Food Facility and kitchen expansion to provide more free meals for critical and terminally ill people. She got $50 million for the County of Los Angeles for the LAC and USC General Hospital Reuse Project. She got $20 million, which Assemblywoman Tina McKenna mentioned, to fund the LA County Department of Health Services and other entities designed by the county that would administer the pilot program to ensure equitable access to abortion care. She got $9 million for ETTA for capital outlay projects for a revolutionary new housing project, The Village, that will serve adults with disabilities. And lastly, I wanted to highlight, she got $2 million for the City of Los Angeles Clean Tech Incumberator to expand workforce development and clean tech innovation pilot program. So we were excited about all the hard work she did on the budget. Also there, just to reiterate, there is like one more chump at the apple through August for the budget, but it's pretty much just cleaning up at this point, and then they'll begin for the budget for next year. I wanted to highlight, one, very sadly, that the senator fought very hard for ACA 3, which would have removed slavery and indentured servitude from the California I'm sorry. So anyway, she fought and they lost on the Senate floor, wasn't able to get that through, but it's not over, and Senator Bradford will pick up the fight going forward. I wanted to highlight SB 679, which create the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solution Agency. It's a single affordable housing solution agency in Los Angeles County with the ability to raise its own public and private revenue to fund systematic solutions to the countywide affordable housing crisis, including 100% affordable housing and renter protective programs. I want to highlight 2 criminal justice reform bills. There's one, SB 1304, which would seek to raise the gateway money when you're released from a state prison from $200 to $1,300. And this will directly affect recidivism and homelessness. So there is definitely a key there. If you're released from state prison and you're only given $200, you're highly likely to increase our homeless population. She also has a bill, 1187, which would create a pilot program in Los Angeles to recycle textiles in the fashion industry. And then lastly, there is 1397, which will require the California Air Resource Board to conduct a regular checkup on its regular standards for the cap and trade program, and it would improve the accounting of carbon offsets rather. So these are some things that the senator is working on. She's sorry she could not make it today, but she will be back hard at work starting in August. And I'll put my information in the chat if anybody has any issues here in the 30th district that we can assist you with. And thank you for having us.
Thank you, Joy, for that update. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to move along to Senator Ben Allen's office. We have Alina. The floor is yours.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. You know, the really good thing about going, I think, third or fourth in this line is that most everyone has covered everything. So I'm a happy camper today. So I won't go into the budget or anything like that. I think that's been very well covered at this point. But I did want to say our office definitely does have some budget wins in relation to our budget requests, but we are not publicly releasing those yet. Though we have been allocated these funds, it's not actually 100% final and cemented. So we are not going to take that small risk of letting anyone down. But on the good front, we do have some very good wins in project funding for the South Bay. So we're really looking forward to announcing those a little later in the year, or I guess a little later in the summer. Definitely after recess. We are in recess right now. We are not in active legislative session. So I hope we will have an update for you all soon. And I'm sure many of the city council members and city managers on this call will hear about it first. So we're looking forward to that. Like I said, everything's been pretty much covered by the other speakers on this call. So all I wanted to do today was really highlight our most recent win legislatively that we are very excited about. If you've been following our office for the last 3 or 4 years, we have finally passed SB 54, which is our Plastic Producer Responsibility Act. And we are very excited about this. Senator Allen is over the moon that we were able to get this bipartisan bill through. Now, SB 54 has received a lot of press coverage, so I don't know that I need to go into all the little details of it, but SB 54 will reduce the amount of waste that burns our taxpayers and our local governments, plagues our human health, and pollutes our natural environment by decreasing single-use packaging and the most problematic plastic food serviceware products that are sold in California, and ensure that the remaining items are effectively composted and recycled. So we're really excited about that and continue to work with that with all of our stakeholders. So if you want any more information on that bill, I'm more than happy to provide that for you, because like I said, we are happy that all this hard work has finally paid off. 3 years in the making is no small feat of patience. I did have some responses for the COG's questions that were submitted to us. I think the budget question has been pretty much answered. There was a question about some of the programs that the state budget was funding, and I think we cover that. We have tax refunds to help address inflation at over $9 billion, $1.4 billion to help pay for past due utilities. We have rental assistance. We have $53 billion for extreme weather protection, $4 billion to invest in clean and reliable infrastructure or energy infrastructure. We have $30 million going towards the National Guard's drug interdiction efforts. So we have quite a bit of funding in there for different projects that I think have been highlighted. But the question that I found most interesting was about water use and in relation to new housing, which I'm sure you know, we're not a huge housing bill office. So I did do some research into this. And the best answer that I could find was that Angelenos are using 44% less water per person annually than they did 4 decades ago. So in my interpretation of a couple of things that I read, it seems like the state and water utilities in general are watching water use per person go down dramatically. Additionally, with new housing comes new technology. We have water efficient faucets, toilets, appliances, showers that greatly reduce the amount of water being used per person. Additionally, I think most of us are aware of the wastewater recycling plants that are being put in all over the state, including one in the South Bay area, which will help with water availability as well. I see Sharon smiling there in the corner. But in addition to that, you know, the blanket fact that I think we have to keep in mind is that only 20% of our water in the state is going towards individuals. And most of that is going towards watering lawns and landscaping and such. It's such a small portion of water in the state that's going towards individual use. So I think that to sum it up, I think the utilities in the state are really looking at decreased use of water per person. And that's probably playing into the housing discussion as we move forward with that. I think that might be about it. I think there was a question about housing and affordable housing and what the state was doing for it. And there's quite a bit of funding in the budget. We have $500 million for 2023 calendar year in low income tax credits. We have $100 million over 2 years for affordable housing on state excess sites. We have $325 million over 2 years for multifamily housing programs, $350 million for a Cal Home program. There's quite a bit of funding in here for affordable housing in this budget. So I do not think, I mean, of course, we'd always like more and more and more. But once again, the talking point for the budget has been, we are looking to mostly fund one-time funding requests for the state. We will not have this surplus forever. So we wanted to be careful about funding programs for the far future. That's not what the goal of the budget was this year. Also keep in mind, I know that $100 billion surplus, that figure looks really good, but remember that most of that has to legally go to education. So we were not dealing with that full $100 billion of surplus in funding projects throughout the state. Through Prop 98, most of that had to go to education, which is great. We're not complaining about that at all, but there's plenty of money to go around. So with that, I think that's pretty much my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Alina, and thank you to the senator for, of course, sponsoring legislation for us. And we're hoping that your secret budget wins may include some good news for us. But you know, anyways, crossing our fingers.
I didn't mean to make it so ominous, but
okay, all right. Well, you know, we won't hold you to it. Wink, wink. And congratulations on SB 54. You're right. That has been a long road, and it's going to have a significant impact on single-use plastic. So thank you for your dedication and hard work from everyone.
Of course, and just to follow up, I'm sorry, I forgot one of those questions was about carrying a trailer bill for that bill that we carried, the housing trust bill. And our staff is currently in talks about that. I can't make any promises, just as Jasmine mentioned. It's a little late in the session, but we are actively exploring.
Thank you. Thank you, Alina. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have from Assemblymember Almira Suchi's office, Eric Ponce. Eric?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Ponce. I am a field representative in the office of Assemblymember Merit Suchi, and I'm just here to provide some updates on some of the Assembly members' bills. The first one would be AB 1740, which is the catalytic converter theft bill. This bill would require scrap recyclers to purchase catalytic converters from the vehicle owner or a licensed commercial enterprise. It is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee, so it's still going through the legislative process. The second bill, which might be of interest to the COG, is AB 2432, which is the neighborhood electric vehicles. This bill would give South Bay cities the authority to introduce neighborhood electric vehicles plans on city streets. And it is currently on the assembly floor for a concurrence vote due to minor amendments in the Senate that were just clarifying in nature. The third bill would be AB 2703, which is the electric vehicle charging station. This bill seeks to expand affordable and convenient zero emission vehicle infrastructure access in low income communities. neighborhoods and provide the necessary funding to the California Energy Commission to be able to provide financial assistance to low income and disadvantaged community members. The office also continues to help constituents with rent relief and EDD. And the main issues with the EDD are unemployment and disability insurance, as well as paid family leave. We do have some upcoming events this month. The first one is this month and next month, I'm sorry. The first event is pet adoption, which is set for Saturday, July 23rd. It will be held at Charles Wilson Park near the animal control site. The second event will be a senior scam stopper event, which is set for Friday, August 12th at 9 a.m. And it will be at Silverado Beach City's Memory Care. And I will send all of this information to Natalie Champion so that she can share it with everyone. We also have upcoming coffees, community coffees with the City of Gardena, which will be on August 20th. We are finalizing these coffees and we'll send more information as soon as possible. We also will be hosting a Palos Verdes Peninsula coffee in September. Again, we are finalizing these coffees and we'll send the flyers as soon as possible. As for the question regarding the budget requests, the assembly member has submitted budget requests for the city of Torrance. We are requesting $5,500,000 for the Community Resource and Response Center. We are also requesting $500,000 for the Homeless Courts Program in Redondo Beach. We are requesting $2 million for the revitalization of Gardena Boulevard in Gardena, in the city of Gardena. We also requested $4 million for the fiber corridor in the city of Gardena, which will connect all of the city's 6 parks. For Hermosa Beach, we requested $2,300,000 for the renovation of the Hermosa Beach Pier. For the Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified School District, the assembly member also requested $500,000 for facility upgrades. And lastly, the assembly member also requested $1,400,000 for the Department of Housing and Community Development at the Boys and Girls Club of the Los Angeles Harbor. And, yeah, those are all the updates that I have this morning.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to the assembly member for his support on legislation, obviously, that will greatly affect the South Bay COG and some of those budget earmarks that you just listed off. Thank you very much.
And I will share my contact information on the chat, and thank you so much for having me.
Terrific. Thank you. Next up, last but not least, from Assembly Member Patrick O'Donnell's office, we have Eileen Tobar. Eileen?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm dropping my information right now in the chat. So that way, if there's any additional follow-up questions, you're more than welcome to email me, and I'm happy to touch with the appropriate staff member to get you that information. But the first thing I want to start off with is some of the budget accomplishments we're able to get this year. So one of the big things that the assembly member was working on was basically getting an increase in funding for schools and school facilities. So we were able to get $4.5 billion to build and modernize facilities. We also were able to increase a 13% base level funding. Also, there will be a 60% reimbursement for home to school transportation. We also were able to get more funding for higher education housing. So there is additional $2 billion between now and 2024 to 2025 for student housing facilities, which will expand the state's commitment to provide more affordable housing for our students. I think this was mentioned prior by my colleagues, but basically there's $2 billion for affordable housing. So that includes multifamily housing programs, farm worker housing programs, ADU financing, as well as veterans housing and homelessness prevention. We also were able to get more assistance and help for small businesses and nonprofits. So there is $2.3 billion in relief as well as 250 million to fund supplemental paid sick leave relief grants, which is great, especially, we're still coming out of COVID, so that additional assistance will be very helpful to support our small businesses and nonprofits as they're trying to recover, from the pandemic. We also, as you know, the Assembly member does cover both ports, the Port of Long Beach and the Port of LA. So this year in the budget, we're able to secure 1.2 billion for infrastructure improvements at California ports, as well as 110 million investments in the supply chain workforce development. So making sure we have programs that help those that want to transition to those jobs at the ports, that they have those programs in place to help meet that demand for those jobs and those skill sets. Let me see what else we have. Also, as probably you're familiar, there are direct rebates coming to Californians. So there is 9.5 billion investments to help workers and families. So families are able to get up to $1,050 in direct deposits, and up to $350 for individuals. And that's to kind of help, with some of the high prices in gas. So that will be coming to Californians. I believe there isn't a timeline yet as to, I think, when Californians can expect that money, but those will be coming to kind of help, the cost of gas at this time. There are also money set aside in the budget to help fight organized retail theft. So basically what it does, it makes a permanent task force that will help basically fight this organized retail crime. And that funding will basically kind of stretch out up until 2027. So there will be getting, millions of dollars in order to help fight that. In terms of some of the legislation that the Assembly member has been working on that might be of interest to the COG, and this has been, an ongoing issue, but basically the DDT, we have our Assembly bill, AB 2758. So basically this will address, this decades old dumped chemical waste in our coastal waters. So basically this will give us an opportunity, to basically create an opportunity for us to address that problem. We also were able to expand student access to school-based health and mental health services. That's our bill AB 2034. So basically what this will do is that it will remove the current burdensome process schools must follow to take part in the Medi-Cal program. So this bill will encourage more schools to offer these vital services. So that way, students can get the services that they need, especially during COVID. There was a rise in mental health cases and students seeking mental health services. So we're trying to make sure that students have that opportunity to get those resources and not always have to access them outside of their school. We also were able to move our bill AB 2630 forward, which basically what it does is create a vital transparency and accountability for the billions of dollars California has invested to solve our homelessness crisis. Basically, it would require local governments to publicly report the progress they have made around this, decreasing homelessness and making sure that people are getting housed within our communities. So those are some of the things that we've been working on. If there are any questions, like I said, please feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'm definitely happy to, get the additional clarifications for you all. Oh, sorry, one more thing I wanted to add, it was that another thing we're able to secure in the budget is 159.7 million to purchase zero emission drayage trucks, as well as charging and hydrogen fueling infrastructure. As you know, the ports are working to further create or to make their ports more green. So that's a huge investment for the ports so that they're able to continue to meet those goals that are set, by the state and also themselves. But that's it. Thank you so much again for having me this morning.
Thank you, Eileen. That was a very thorough update. Really appreciate that. We do now have a few minutes. If anyone here on the call has any questions, we obviously have some council members here in attendance. I see some city managers that may have some burning questions. So if anyone has a question, you can throw it in the chat or put your virtual hand up. Not seeing any takers. All right. Oh, we do. All right. Just like that. Councilmember Valentine.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. So I wanted to address this question to any of the state representatives. Homeowners are facing increasing pressure financial pressure to sell their homes because of various policies that have been passed. And I would like to know what relief assistance is available for them. I understand that there is availability, there is a website available that's available that they can go to, but I'm wondering what additional relief has been appropriated to help homeowners who are facing increased pressure to sell their homes, financial pressure to sell their homes.
That's a great question, Olivia, especially since there's definitely been a focus on allocating so much from the budget to affordable housing. What can we do to keep people housed that are currently housed? Jasmine, you want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, so actually there's the California Mortgage Relief Program that it's been actually in the works for a while, but recently we were just in a overview yesterday, and they just increased their window for their AMI, their area medium income. So before, a lot of people weren't eligible for it because they didn't meet it, but now it's up to 150% of AMI. So a lot more people are eligible for this program. And this is basically a program to pay up to $80,000 in past due mortgage payments, and unpaid property tax up to $20,000. And let me see, I have my notes on it. And reverse mortgage arrearages. Anyway, so it's just a first come, first serve basis, and it's a $1 billion in federal funds that's being put into this program. So the people in homeowners that are struggling with mortgages, I recommend that they do that. And like I said, there was a cap on who would be qualified, but now they've expanded the window so a lot more people could qualify for this program.
So is it only available to those who are behind in their mortgage payments, it sounds like?
Yes, for those that are behind on their mortgage, that have missed at least one mortgage payment.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Jasmine.
No. There's also a preliminary application before they go into the main application that would kind of let them know whether or not they qualify for the program. So before they go deep into finding mortgage statements and bank statements, they have a little preliminary application on their website to see if that's something that they qualify for. And I could put the constituent call contact center on the chat. And of course, programs like Stay Housed LA helps with different resources that I personally am not too familiar with, but they know all the resources that would be available for homeowners and even renters. So I'm
Stay Housed LA a nonprofit?
It's in partnership with LA County, and I believe it is a nonprofit, and they also provide lawyer advice from legal professionals too, in some situations.
Thank you.
This is Ronson from the Homeless Services Senior Project Manager at the COG. Yeah, the Stay Housed LA is nonprofits. It's a collection of them, primarily the Inner City Law Center. And thank you, Council Member Valentine, for bringing this up, because just wanted to throw out there, we are seeing increased number of seniors being evicted or in dire financial situations, especially seniors in fixed income categories like Social Security. We're getting, it seems like, a call a week. We just got a call yesterday about a senior being evicted. Her door was locked by the landlord, and she couldn't get into her apartment. So anything we can do for maybe seniors in the realm of rent relief or mortgage relief, interest rate relief. If folks are on adjustable rate mortgages, our interest rates have gone up from 3% to 5%. So it's hitting people hard. So thanks, Council Member, for bringing this to people's attention.
Sorry,
I would also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jasmine.
No, sorry. Thanks so much, Ronson. I just like to add, Bonsa's office was saying that there's a whole process of being evicted, and if a landlord is just locking the key to someone's home and someone can't get in, that is illegal, and that is not something that they're allowed to do. That has to be with a court assistance, and there has to be people there to officially say that they are evicted. So if someone in your community, if that's happened to them, that's illegal. And I think there's a call number in Bonce's office to report things like this. So I'll try and find that number for you too. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I wanted to add two things, not specifically related to property relief or property tax relief or mortgage relief. Remember that we also have that $1.4 billion in rent utility assistance coming out for anyone that needs help with past due bills. I know that utilities are expensive and they're going up, and that's a lot of the issues that we're getting from senior callers that are on a fixed income, is that their utility bills have gotten too expensive for them. We are extending that utility relief program at the state with this budget, so it'll still be helping people out with that. There's still also that emergency rental assistance from the state. As long as they applied by that March 31st deadline, they will be able to receive that rental assistance from the state still. So I just wanted to add those in there. I don't think anyone's brought this up. It's kind of a sticky subject, to be frank, but though we do have these inflation payment assistance coming out from the budget and from the state, people have to have filed their taxes to receive that payment. That is the only way that the state can really, one, cut down on fraud, and two, make sure that we're able to get this funding out to Californians. It's really the only database that we have. The feds do not share their social security information with us. So anyone that's getting those payments has to have filed a state tax form by October of last year to receive that payment. So if anyone calls into offices or to our council members or representatives and is wondering about those payments, please let them know that they have to file that tax return. That's a bit of information I find is kind of lacking out there.
Thank you for all that information and the resources. Alina, Jasmine, Ronson, thank you for the question. Olivia. We will move on to our next raised hand, Jeff Kiernan from Cal Cities.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank the COG for putting this on. It's always great to connect with our legislative offices. I wanted to mention just a couple things that Cal Cities has been working on that have been priorities for us. Since we've been talking so much about the budget, I want to put in the chat a link to our letter. Cal Cities has been requesting a budget allocation for the more than $933 million that is owed to cities statewide for these are costs that have already been paid out to cities and special districts for implementing state mandated programs, things like Brown Act costs and other things like that. So there's more than $6.5 million owed just to the South Bay cities, and these are costs that have been sort of accruing since 2004. It would be a one-time cost. Cities are owed this money, and it'd be good for the state to sort of pay its debt with this unprecedented large surplus. And then secondly, I just wanted to talk about Brown Act modernization. Cal Cities, and I believe this COG had supported AB 1944, really hoping to be able to take advantage of some of the technology we've all been using since the pandemic, allow local citizens, community members to participate remotely. Also, council members participate remotely, especially those who are immunocompromised and don't want to put themselves at risk attending a council meeting with the public, or put the public at risk if they happen to have a mild case of COVID and might be quarantining at home, but still want to be able to participate in the city business. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Unfortunately, AB 1944 did fail this year. We're hoping that next year we can bring something back, another proposal, and we hope that we can work with the legislative offices on that. And other than that, obviously, I know we've been working on housing a lot and land use. Cities really have taken the brunt of the number of constantly changing rules and regulations in this matter. It's something that we just really need to be able to get our feet under us and to know what the rules are for a year, maybe, before the state passes additional changes to the law. So it's something that our planning departments would really appreciate. So I just wanted to make mention of that. And also, this one-time funding for affordable housing is great, but really what we need is an ongoing source so that the affordable housing developers and the cities know that they can rely upon money year in and year out, not just this one-time funding that really evaporates pretty quickly. So I just wanted to make mention of that quickly, and thank you all for your participation.
Thank you, Jeff, for those updates, and thank you for always being a great partner for all of us with the COG. And thanks for being here today. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none. And before we close, I want to make sure first, I know I technically have to open it for public comment. I've asked for questions. I hope I've satisfied that portion of our agenda. But I also wanted to acknowledge everyone that was here and spoke and answered questions and really gave us such thorough updates. We truly appreciate your time. Of course, our cameo by Congressmember Waters, and of course the update directly from Assembly Member McKinnon. And thank you, Charlotte, Jeanette, Nico, Jasmine, Joy, Olina, Eric, and Eileen for coming here, spending the time and sharing all those updates and your constant and depth of advocacy for all of our cities. We appreciate you all so very much. So thank you. And before we close, I want to toss it over to Chairperson John Cruikshank for a couple thoughts.
Thank you, Stacy. I just wanted on behalf of the South Bay City Council of Government to appreciate the fact that our representatives took the time to have all that information. It was like a fire hose of information. I'm glad we recorded it because I didn't capture all of it, but thank you all for coming out and attending. Of course, Stacy, thank you for moderating. Jackie, thank you for hosting and the update. And actually everyone that attended, we appreciate it on behalf of all 16 of our cities and our 2 counties. We have a lot of issues out there, and so working together is critically important, and this sort of legislative update leads us to a great dialogue. So thank you everyone for attending, and have a good day.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will close the meeting and adjourn to Thursday, October 13th, later this year, hopefully for a more hybrid approach so we can see each other in person. In the meantime, have a great summer, stay well, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.